as we know, the vertebral column that is comprised of different types of the vertebrae, like cervical vertebrae, thoracic vertebrae, lumbar vertebrae, sacral vertebrae, and coccygeal vertebrae. These different types of the vertebrae, they have been categorized as typical and atypical vertebrae. Typical vertebrae क्या होता है? Typical vertebrae or the vertebrae, they have the body, the arch and processes. The vertebrae, they have the body, arch and the processes. That is known as typical vertebrae. Most of the vertebrae, they are typical vertebrae. While as any deviation from this general plan, they are known as atypical vertebrae. ठीक है, दो टाइप्स के होते हैं, एक टिपिकल एक एटिपिकल. टिपिकल में बॉडी होती है, एक आर्च होती है एंड प्रोसेसेस होते हैं. एटिपिकल में जो होते हैं the vertebrae we show any deviation from the general plan, so they are atypical. Like कौन कौन सा एटिपिकल वर्टिब्रे है? उसमें एटलस आता है, उसमें एक्सिस आता है, देयर आर सैक्रम एंड सम कॉक्सिजियल वर्टिब्रे. नाउ कमिंग फर्स्ट टू द टिपिकल वर्टिब्रे. तो यहाँ पे मैंने एक वर्टिब्रे ली है, दिस इज जनरली सर्वाइकल वर्टिब्रे. तो इस पे मैं आई विल शो यू द डिफरेंट features of a typical vertebrae. So the typical vertebrae, first it has a body. So this is the body, this is the body. Second, it has the arch, this is the arch, neural arch and processes. Now the first one, that is the body. So the body, it is just a rod like mass of the bone on which the whole vertebrae develops. जिसपे ये जो this is the base of the vertebrae, जिसपे the whole vertebrae built on this body. So this is the body or the centrum. इसका दूसरा नाम भी है, it's called as centrum or body. This body, it presents four surfaces. चार surface होते हैं. The anterior surface, this is the posterior surface, the dorsal surface, and here have the ventral surface. So ventral surface, dorsal surface, the anterior surface and the posterior surface. Now coming to the anterior surface. This is the anterior surface. The anterior surface, it is convex. This is convex and this surface, it articulates with the posterior surface. So anterior होता है या articulate करता है with the posterior surface of the preceding vertebrae. इसके आगे जो दूसरी vertebrae होगी उसके साथ articulate करेगा with the help of a fibrocartilage. That means anterior and posterior के बीच में there is a fibrocartilage that is known as intervertebral disc. ठीक है. Now coming to the next surface, that is known as, this is the posterior surface. The posterior surface, this is concave. Now you can see this is concave and this posterior surface, it articulates with the anterior surface of the succeeding vertebrae. जो उसके पीछे दूसरी vertebrae होगी उसके साथ ये articulate करेगा. ठीक है. So this is the anterior surface, that is convex. This is the posterior surface, that is concave. And now coming this one, this is the dorsal surface. This is flat and it forms the floor of the neural. This is a neural ring. It forms the floor of the neural ring. ठीक है. It forms the floor of the neural ring. And then we have the ventral surface. This surface, this is the ventral surface. The ventral surface, that ventral surface, this is the ventral surface. It presents the infraspinous process. This is the infraspinous process on the ventral surface. So this was all about the, ठीक है, this was all about the body. This infraspinous process, it is meant for the muscular and ligamentous attachment. So muscles and ligaments, they are attached on this infraspinous process that is present on the ventral surface of the body. ठीक है. So this was all about the body or centrum. Now coming to the next, that is the neural arch. This is the neural arch. The neural arch, it presents, this is the pedicel that forms the lateral wall, and this is the lamina. The lamina that forms, this forms the, that forms the roof of the neural ring. So that means the neural arches of the both sides, they together they will form a ring that is known as neural ring. ठीक है, this is the neural ring, and the neural ring of the different vertebrae, they will join, they will form a canal that is known as neural canal or vertebral canal. ठीक है, that is called as, this is the neural arch, they form a ring that is neural ring, and they form a canal that is known as neural canal. This neural canal, इसमें क्या होता है, that lodges the spinal cord. ठीक है, this lodges the spinal cord. ये जो न्यूरल कैनाल बनेगा उसमें क्या रहेगा, स्पाइनल कॉर्ड. एंड जो पेडिसल्स होते हैं, द पेडिसल जो होता है, दिस वन एंड दिस वन, दे प्रेजेंट इज नॉच. एंटीरियरली भी नॉच होता है. हियर यू कैन सी दिस इज द नॉच, हियर notch, this is the notch here, and this is the notch here. So the pedicel, they present the notch anteriorly and posteriorly. ये notches क्या करते हैं, you can see this is the notch. ये क्या करेगा, this notches with the adjacent vertebrae, it will form a foramen. So यहाँ से जब दूसरा आएगा, it will form here a foramen that is known as intervertebral foramen. ठीक है, so it is intervertebral, just here it is formed by these notches. ठीक है, so intervertebral foramen through which the blood vessels and the spinal nerves pass. ठीक है, कहाँ से, through the intervertebral foramen. ठीक है, यहाँ से बनेगा, यहाँ से बनेगा, यहाँ से और यहाँ से. So with the adjacent vertebrae. ठीक है, so this was about the neural arch. So first was the body, second it was the neural arch. Now coming to the third point, that is the processes. So the processes, they vary in shape and sizes of the different vertebrae. ठीक है, ये सारे जो हैं, these are all processes. ठीक है, these are all processes. Now coming to the first, that is the articular process या oblique processes. These oblique processes, they are 4 in number. ठीक है, ये आगे से 2 आएंगे और यहाँ से भी आगे से 2 आएंगे, ये पीछे से 2 आएंगे. They are 4 in number. 2 are present on the anteriorly and 2 posteriorly. ठीक है, so 4 in number, these are called as articular process or oblique processes. जो these anterior oblique processes, they present small articular area. ठीक है, this one that facing upwards. You can see जो articular surface होता है anterior oblique process पे, that is facing upwards, this one. While as the articular surface that is present on the posterior oblique process, that is facing downwards. ठीक है, ये नीचे की तरफ होता है इधर, that is facing downwards. So these articular surfaces, they will join this process, they will join with the adjacent vertebrae and they form diarthro. So anterior oblique process, they will join with the posterior oblique process of the adjacent vertebrae here, and they form a joint that is diarthrodial joint. ठीक है, यहाँ पे diarthrodial joint बनेगा यहाँ. So this was about the oblique या articular process. Now coming to the next, that is the, this is the suprasupinous process. The suprasupinous process, it is present on the dorsal aspect of the neural ring. ठीक है, so this suprasupinous process, they use attachment to the muscles and the ligaments, and they are very well developed in which type of vertebrae, thoracic vertebrae. ठीक है, supraspinous, it is well developed in the thoracic vertebrae. Then we have this infrasupinous process. The infrasupinous process, it is placed on the ventral surface of the body, and it gives attachment to the muscles and the ligaments. ठीक है, ये हो गया articular और oblique processes. supraspinous process, infrasuppinous process. There's another process that is known as transverse process. Transverse process क्या होते हैं? These are the horizontal plates. They will extend. ठीक है? They will extend from the body here, and these transverse process, they are very well developed. You can see this is the transverse process, and here this is again the transverse process. So these transverse process, they are very well developed in lumbar vertebrae में बहुत ही अच्छे डेवलप होते हैं ये. कौन? That is the transverse process. ठीक है? So पहला आ गया anterior articular. These are the oblique processes. Articular process or oblique processes. Suprasupinous. This is infrasupinous process. These are the transverse process. Then we have the another process that is between the anterior oblique process and the transverse process. There are mammillary processes. Mammillary process place. So between the anterior oblique process and the transverse process, there are mammillary process. They are better developed in thoracic vertebrae and lumbar vertebrae. ठीक है, यहाँ पे रहते हैं वो. And पीछे पे क्या होता है? Between the posterior articular process and the transverse process, then they have the accessory process. Accessory process यहाँ पे रहते हैं. Accessory process किसमें होते हैं? They are present in the lumbar vertebrae of the dog. Lumbar vertebra, they have accessory processes. So this was all about the typical vertebrae. So the features of a typical vertebrae, they are the body, the neural arch, and the different types of the processes. So any deviation from this general plan, the vertebrae is known as atypical vertebrae. That is like the atlas, axis, sacral vertebrae or sacrum, and some coccygeal vertebrae. ठीक है? Thank you very much.